What is up, everyone? Please take a second to hit that like button. The more likes that we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat to come hang out with us and see what's going on. So please hit that like button. Let me know how you're doing. And happy freedom. So I see you guys see my little Diablo video. I tried to fix things, but you can still probably hear I am not doing great. I am like hacking up green stuff, and I could go into detail, but I won't. I am here. I am here and ready to work. So press briefing's coming up. It could happen any minute. We may just drag it out and wait for that to start instead of trying to squeeze things in front of it. We'll see how it goes either way. What's up, Rasta? What's up, Matthew? What's up, D Money? What's up, Jason? What's up, Z? What's up, Colleen? What's up, Justin? What's up, Not Sure? What's up, Skybird? What's up, Steve? What's up, Amanda? What's up, Jamie and Deborah? What's up, Fitzy? What's up, Willie Jilly? What's up, you hooligans? Thank you so much, King of Dorks, for continuing the membership program for 15 months. You're officially a hooligan. I appreciate you. Thank you. All right. Let's move forward. Make sure everything's running smoothly. What's up, Mr. Coffee? What's up, Grey Wolf? What's up, Toy Mafia? What's up, Tom? What's up, Mr. Beansy Beans? Thank you for continuing the subscription on Twitch for 5 months. You're officially a hooligan. And I appreciate you. Thank you. What's up, you hooligans over here on Odyssey? What's up, Who Through? What's up, Sam? Appreciate you guys being here. What's up, Pumpkin? What's up, everyone on Rumble? Good Lord, Facebook. You're so difficult.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, it's press briefing time.
My team would not let me come out. We're bonding in lower press. Okay, as you saw, the president made a bit of news today on our continued support for Ukraine alongside our allies and partners. My colleague here from the National Security Council, John Kirby, Admiral Kirby, is here to take some of your questions, and I will welcome him to the podium. All right.
Prostitute.
Okay.
I don't have any opening statement. I'm just happy to take whatever questions you have.
Nobody cares.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you very much. Hi, Kirby. Thanks a lot for doing this.
Yeah.
My question is about the direct budgetary assistance the U.S. has supplied to Ukraine. President Zelensky recently fired senior leaders in Ukraine.
Questions, and I will
Is the
welcome
U.S.
you.
confident that direct budgetary assistance has been used properly in Ukraine?
As you know, that budgetary assistance is directed through the World Bank, and we're confident in that process. We obviously share President Zelensky's concerns over these corruption allegations, and it's apparent that he takes it seriously. That's important. We'll obviously let him work his way through that. But in terms of the budgetary assistance, like I said, goes through the World Bank. We're comfortable with that process.
Any signs of
We have not seen any signs that our budgetary assistance have fallen prey to any kind of corruption in Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Jason, for continuing the membership program. You're officially a hooligan. I appreciate you. Thank you.
In lockstep with the Ukrainians on accountability measures on that, and see no indication that any
This is honey and lemon tea, hooligans. It's not coffee.
answer has been being used inappropriately.
We're going to jump around.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the briefing. For a long time, U.S. military officials had resisted this move to send Abrams tanks, saying that they're difficult to operate, difficult to
Okay, hold on a second.
train.
You're right. We've been completely open and transparent about the sophistication level of the Abrams tank. It's as the president said, the most capable, powerful tank in the world. And a lot goes into making it the most capable tank.
Hit that like button and share these links out. More likes, more hooligans.
Training that's needed. There's sophisticated maintenance requirements. There's a supply chain. I mean, it uses a gas turbine engine, basically a jet engine, 1,500 horsepower. So there's a lot that goes into operating these tanks on the field. That said, we've never ruled tanks out. We have been, from the beginning of this war now 11 months ago, been evolving the capabilities what we're providing with Ukraine with the conditions on the ground. And so when you're to get to your specific questions, what's changed? What's changed, Kristen, are the conditions
YouTube, you suck. Just sincerely, JeffMAC.
on the ground. And the kinds of fighting that the Russians are doing right now, and the kinds of fighting, more importantly.
Before everybody tells me my internet sucks, I'm sure the 500 megabit per second download and the 100 megabit per second upload just isn't good enough.
And that's why we're doing the combined arms training outside of Ukraine for battalion-sized units. Combined arms maneuver, that's a fancy title, what basically means being able to integrate your ground capabilities, whether that's armor, artillery, even some degree small air defense systems, integrating command and control, logistics, integrating all that to fight on the ground, particularly with open terrain. That's why armored vehicles were so high on the list for the Ukrainians, and tanks are armored vehicles. So this very much just follows right along with the kinds of discussions we've been having with the Ukrainians for months about making sure that they can fight on the terrain that they're in and that they can prepare for operations going forward this year.
And just to follow up, it was part of the calculation, because obviously there's been this robust back and forth between the U.S. and Germany. Is part of this about giving cover to Germany and other European allies to allow them to send in tanks?
I wouldn't use the word cover. What this decision does do is show that how unified we are with our allies and partners, and doing all of this in a coordinated way. So today you saw that Chancellor Scholz announced that they're going to provide immediately a company of Leopard tanks. A company's about 14, and there's 2 companies to a Ukrainian battalion, and he's going to be working with allies and partners to get additional companies of tanks, Leopard tanks, into Ukraine. It's about coordination. It's about the unity here and the resolve that we all have together to help support Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Could you get a little more specific about how many tanks the Ukrainians would like to have? I mean, I know you're going to say it's their decision, but obviously you're communicating with them the whole time. How many they would like to have to get what they want to do done, i.e. these counter-offensives? And do you think they're going to get there with this whole hodgepodge of different Western contributions?
So you're right, I'm not going to speak for President Zelensky. I think if he was up here instead of me, he would tell you
I gotta go blow my nose. I'll be right back.
as fast as he can. So the battalion that we're going to provide, that's 31 tanks. And that's for a Ukrainian-sized battalion. An American battalion has more tanks in it, but the way they're organized, it's about 30 to 31 tanks. And again, the Germans are going to help organize another 2 battalions. So that's about 60 more, roughly. And that's just what was talked about today. The Brits have agreed to send some of their Challenger tanks. You heard the president talk about the French and their contributions to armored vehicles. So there's a lot that's being applied to this, and armored vehicles are important. You know, you don't go after a crocodile with a cornstalk, and these vehicles, these tanks, those armored vehicles, they're going to have an effect.
Okay, but just given the goals which are approaching pretty quickly, right? If there's going to be a spring offensive, we're talking maybe a couple of months or so. Do you feel confident that the Ukrainians are going to get to where they want to be in terms of the armor for these combined arms maneuvers you talk about? That they're going to have all that kit ready?
I can go so far as to tell you that it is our goal, and a goal shared by our allies and partners, including in the phone call this morning that the president had.
Thanks so much, Shadow Patriot, for continuing the membership program for 1 month. You're officially a hooligan. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Successful on the battlefield today, but just as critically in the future, going forward this year. Because right now, I mean, it's wintertime, so the conditions are not great. There's some fighting in the Donbass, but other than that, there's not been a whole heck of a lot, at least around down in the south. But as the weather conditions improve, you can expect that the Russians are going to pick up the tempo. We have to be ready for that, and I know the Ukrainians feel they have to be ready for that. So it's about helping Ukraine defend itself, but also, as you heard the president say, helping Ukraine be able to go on the offense when the weather conditions and when the operational conditions are permissive. Does that answer your question?
Thank you very much.
And then I'll come to that.
This is kind of a follow-up to everybody's question. How much of the U.S. announcement today was a diplomatic effort versus actually the battlefield capability effort in the months ahead when these 31 tanks can be delivered?
Both. Both. There was a lot of diplomacy that went into the announcements today. And I know we've all been focused on the last few days and things that have been said publicly, but actually, I mean, the effort, the decision you saw today by both Germany and the United States was several weeks in the making through many discussions with the Germans and with our allies and partners. But there's a military component here too, Phil. I mean, I get it. I get where you're kind of going is that these tanks are not going to get there for many months, and I understand that. But those Leopards won't take quite as long to get there as the Abrams, and we're not wasting the time. I mean, even as we procure these tanks, we're going to be the Pentagon will very soon start doing the training for Ukrainian tankers, Ukrainian troops that man tanks, so that they can be ready to receive once those tanks are on the battlefield. Another point that's worth making is it's not just about how to operate the Abrams. To Kristen's question, it's how to maintain them, and it's how to have an organic supply chain process, a logistical sustainment process, so that you can keep them maintained and in the fight over the long haul.
Ask one quick thought. We always hear after announcements like this, and you've talked about the progression as the battlefield conditions have changed, the Russian threats of escalation or talking about crossing red lines. Do you feel like those threats at this point are both just par for the course, but also somewhat empty? In the sense that
you mean the Russian threats?
Yeah, they don't seem to stop anything.
Well, we don't. I mean, look, we don't just take anything for granted when they say it, and we're not dismissive. That said, these tanks are meant to help Ukraine fight effectively on open terrain, to defend their sovereignty and their territory, and to win back territory that the Russians have taken from them. And as the president said, they don't represent an offensive threat to Russia. Do they represent a threat to Russian soldiers? You bet they do, but not to Russian soldiers that are in Ukraine, not to Russia proper.
Thank you, Kevin. Hi, John. Actually, Phil asked my question, but...
Oh, good. So we can go to the next one.
I have a follow-up on that. The expectation that these tanks will be delivered within a month, at least for a month. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. But the reports that the Russians might launch a counterattack now. Do you see this as...
Make sure your hooligans are hitting that like button. More likes, more hooligans.
...attack to escalate the war in a way to stop them before they receive these tanks? If they're going to make any change in the war?
I never do well if I try to speak for the Russians and try to get inside their head and what their intents are. What we do believe...
Weird, their audio's off sync.
...that is that the Russians, Mr. Putin, will use the winter not only to conduct operations, which he is in Bakhmut and Soledar, but to use it to regroup, to retrain, to re-equip, and to prepare himself for continued fighting when the weather improves. So we want to make sure that we're using this time as best we can. To help the Ukrainians in the fight that they're in today, but make sure that they're ready for the fight tomorrow, that they're ready to defend themselves against whatever offensive operations the Russians might be planning to do when the weather improves. So, again, I can't predict perfectly how this is going to go, but this is very much,
Their live is rough today.
I've heard, and I've heard it when I was at the Pentagon too, is, it's hand to mouth, and you guys aren't thinking ahead, and it's just whatever the need is for today. And this decision today is very much indicative of the president's long-term commitment to Ukraine and how he has tasked the national security team to think ahead, to plan ahead, to help the Ukrainians get ahead of what's coming down the pike.
Can I follow up on that?
Two quick follow-ups. You noted that our military aid to Ukraine has evolved with conditions on the ground, and the president previously said that these M1 Abrams were needed to liberate Ukraine. Does the administration expect any operations moving forward that would include retaking Crimea or lands that were lost during the Russian invasion?
I'm not going to talk about Ukrainian operations.
I just remembered there's a Trump rally on Saturday, and I think it might be his first campaign rally. we're going to be covering that on all the alternative platforms. So look forward to that on the weekend, Hooligans.
Dictate to the Ukrainians how they operate, where they operate, what missions they conduct, what targets they choose. We help them with usable information and intelligence as best we can so that they can be successful, but these are their decisions to make. It is their country, their war. Our job is to make sure that they can prosecute that war successfully.
And I want to follow up to make sure that I understood you correctly. You said previously in your assessment of both military and economic aid to Ukraine that at this point, thus far, you haven't seen any signs of corruption or misuse?
Correct.
Thanks, John. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the U.S. settled on the number of tanks it's providing, 31? That's a very specific number.
I kind of got to it a little earlier. It's basically the size of a Ukrainian tank battalion. And I'm getting a little bit astray of my knowledge. I was a naval officer, but as I understand it, an American tank battalion has about 50 tanks in it. And it's organized with more companies to comprise a battalion than in Ukraine. It's just the way the Ukrainian army is organized. It's not right or wrong. It's just that their battalions are basically, I believe, 2 companies. So they're just smaller. And so 2 companies, that's about 15 tanks a company, and that's how you get to 30, 31. And then, usually at least one of these tanks is the commander's in there, and so you've got a command and control tank that sort of is in charge of how they're operating on the field. And now I'm really, really going astray of my expertise. But I think that's about as far as I...
Thank you so much, Mark Hill, for that $2 donation on YouTube. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Mark.
What are the chances of that happening?
We're in constant discussions with the Ukrainians about their capabilities, and as I've said, we evolve those as the conditions change. Can't blame the Ukrainians for wanting more and more systems. It's not the first time that they've talked about fighter jets, but I don't have any announcements to make on that front.
Go ahead, Christina.
Is there concern that if any of these tanks were to fall in Russian hands, they would have access to the latest U.S. technology?
There's always what we call tech transfer concerns, I mean, that would be the case with other systems that we have provided to Ukraine. But, and this doesn't, kind of gets to the corruption question, but not really. We just haven't seen any indications that any of the material that we have provided Ukraine isn't being stored appropriately, used appropriately, maintained appropriately, and being fought with appropriately. We're just not seeing that happen. But is that a potential risk? It's always a risk in war. It's a risk when we fight a war. But that's why we're working so closely with the Ukrainians on accountability, and we've really increased our efforts through the Defense Attaché's office in Kyiv to work with the Ukrainians on accountability so that we have a better sight picture on where these things are at any given time. But it's a war, and you can't forget that. I mean, it's a war.
Thanks, Brian. John, why not take the Abrams out of existing stocks to get them there faster? Is there a reason that you want more training before that happens, or is there some U.S. need that you want to keep that?
The Pentagon assesses that they don't have any excess Abrams in their inventory, that all of them are gainfully employed, if you will, for our own national security defense. And even if there were excess tanks, the process of getting them to Ukraine, to prepare them for use by the Ukrainians, to train Ukrainians, to put all the parts and supplies in place, would take many months anyway. So it's not like this procurement process is really costing us any time than if we just drew them down out of our own stocks. But the real reason is we just don't have them. We don't have excess tanks. The second thing is, and this is not unimportant, is that, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, when they get there, we want to make sure that they fall on ready hands and that the Ukrainians know how to use them. They know how to keep them running, and they've got the supply chain.
Yeah, Maudib, their audio is off. I think that's why it was buffering. I think when it buffered, it got out of sync. There isn't anything we can do about it. It's on their end.
The Pentagon, I think, talked about this earlier today. There's no date certain on the calendar. I think what we're looking at is what's probably going to be many months before they're actually there.
Thank you. John, so to your point about longer term...
Yeah, did you hooligans look around your house, make sure you can find no classified documents and all that?
About the number of tanks.
You never know.
Ukrainian advisor to Zelensky's office, Mikhailo Podolyak, actually told my colleague after this announcement that what they need is about 200 to 350 tanks from the West. So is that a realistic number? If not now, maybe in the future, if the Ukrainians should happen to prove that they can absorb these initial tranche of tanks and they can maintain it?
I don't think it's wise to get ahead of where we are right now. We are focused on working on this program to get them, procure them, these 31 Abrams tanks, to include all the supplies and parts that go with it and the training that's required to operate and maintain them. And we know, certainly based on the conversation the President had this morning, that our allies and partners in Europe are likewise focused now on moving additional armored capability to include these now German Leopard tanks in a shorter period of time.
To be clear, the future shipments of tanks is not off the table.
We are focused on the announcement the President just made today.
Just one more really quickly. He also said that the next step for Ukrainians will be to request extended range missiles. Is that also under consideration?
We are in constant conversation with the Ukrainians about their capabilities. I don't have any announcements to make.
With many months being the time frame, is it fair to say that these tanks will not be available for use for the spring offensive? And secondly, one of the concerns in the lead-up in the debate about this was fuel concerns. How is that being dealt with?
Well, that's part of the supply chain issue, isn't it? I mean, it's a jet engine. It's a gas turbine engine, which needs jet fuel. So there's a specific type of fuel that powers the Abrams, and we've got to make sure that that pipeline, literally and figuratively, is available to Ukraine. So that's going to take some time as well. And look, I'm not going to predict date certain on the calendar. It's going to take many months before the tanks get there. And let's not get ahead of specific spring offensives. We do think as the weather improves, the Russians are going to want to increase their tempo. We want to make sure that the Ukrainians can not only meet that tempo, but be capable of their own. And what that looks like and when that starts or where, that's really up to President Zelensky and his military advisors. We wouldn't speak to that. Only thing I'd add to that, Amr, is that these Leopard tanks won't take quite as long to get on the ground. And again, I'll let the Germans speak to this, but they won't take the same length of time that the Abrams will in order to arrive.
To follow up on Amr, you'll go after.
I'm sorry. I screwed up the flow.
So to follow up on Amr's question about
You had flow, did you? Maybe he's menstruating. Maybe that's what he's talking about, heavy flow. Someone hand him a towel.
given the Ukrainians' demands and given the demands of a potential spring offensive?
You could ask that question about almost any system that we provided, and my answer will always be the same.
Is it Chunky Kirby?
Constant conversation with the Ukrainians about their needs and doing the best we can to address those needs, both short-term and long-term. And the decision that the president announced today was a result of a lot of conversations with the Ukrainians as well as with our allies and partners. And it is very much, as I answered before, it's very much about forecasting. It's about trying to get ahead of the kinds of fighting that we see coming in coming months here in the spring and the summer of this year.
One quick follow-up, and to broaden it out actually beyond the situation in Russia and Ukraine. I was struck by something the president said today about ensuring that neighbors cannot steal other neighbors' territory. It's something you all have brought up many, many times. And I'm curious if you can kind of help us understand why the administration has not changed course on your predecessor, former President Donald Trump's position on the Golan Heights, and what makes that situation distinct from what's going on in Russia and Ukraine.
Look, the different scenarios completely, and I'm not here prepared to talk much about that, except to say we've been very consistent that we want to see a two-state solution, and we believe, the president believes, that a two-state solution is possible and could be viable, but it takes both sides to be willing to commit to that, and we don't want to see either side take unilateral actions that would decrease the possibility of actually reaching a two-state solution.
Could you please bring us a little bit behind the scenes about the negotiations?
You're behind her. I couldn't see it.
Thank you. I was wondering if...
Why is he making that face? He's about to ask her out on a date, and she looks a little rough.
Behind the scenes at the podium.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, she's trying to show you what's behind the scenes.
Union and with the government of Spain.
The discussions have been very robust with our European allies and partners, again, for many weeks here. And certainly the discussion today that the president had with his counterparts in the UK, France, Germany, in Italy was, again, very productive, very candid. All these leaders are rightly focused on doing what they can to help Ukraine and rightly focused on the future. I can't speak for Spanish decision-making here. Spain obviously has been a contributor and a supporter of Ukraine, and that's always welcome. And I think the president addressed some of their contributions today, and we look forward to continuing to work closely with Spain going forward.
James, in the back.
I'm sorry, I didn't have
okay.
I have a question. Thank you.
Wait. You don't have a question, James? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Can we just have this for the record?
Oh my goodness, yes. I'm gonna frame that transcript. Holy mackerel.
This is simply a tribute to your own loquacity and thoroughness in briefing us.
Loquacity is James Rosen for eloquence, is that?
I have two questions for you.
They're gonna mouth the heck out of each other after this.
Yet how Russia will respond. But if Moscow chooses a major escalation and decides to strike NATO, either Poland or the Baltics, do you have enough troops in the region right now to respond? And from day one, not 5 months ahead. And the second question would be, many of those who called for sending Leopards and Abrams to Ukraine argued that Russia right now is militarily too weakened to respond conventionally in a significant way. How confident are you in this assessment that Russia is so weak that, or maybe you have a different assessment, but many people think that Russia is too weak to respond in a significant way to the move that was just announced about tanks?
Let me take the second one first. There's no question.
You take it however you want to, Kirby.
Weaker today than it was 11 months ago. When you talk about the resources and the casualties that they have sunk into this unprovoked war of theirs, and the literally thousands of missiles.
WMM's all by himself over on the JeffMAC live chat.
Launched into Ukrainian territory. I mean, they have burned through a lot of inventory, and they have suffered.
A few hooligans are members on the website. You should go keep them company.
There's no question that their military is weaker for Putin's folly here. That said, you don't have to look very far. I mean, just the news coverage to see that the Russian military and their thugs are still pretty lethal, because Ukrainians continue to die every day. And so I think if you were to ask a Ukrainian here, how weak is Russia, I don't think that they would tell you that there's not still fight left there. And that's why we're so focused on making sure that Ukraine can continue to defend itself and to have the capabilities to fight back and to succeed on the battlefield. On your first question, all I can tell you is we have seen absolutely no indication that Mr. Putin has designs on striking NATO.
What's up, Hillbilly at Heart?
And President Biden has said since the very beginning of this conflict that we take our Article 5 commitments to NATO seriously. Article 5, of course, is the notion that an attack on one is an attack on all. And we take that seriously. In fact, we take it so seriously that President Biden ordered an additional 20,000 American troops alone onto the European continent, and they still are there. Now, we'll be rotating them in and out, but the net number of 100,000 American troops on the European continent has stayed the same and will stay the same for the foreseeable future. Make no mistake, the security environment in Europe has changed. Not is changing, not will change. It has changed because of what Mr. Putin did. And the United States anteed up for that and made clear to our NATO allies, particularly on the eastern flank, how seriously we take our responsibilities to those Article 5 commitments. And Mr. Putin needs to...
So what are you doing about our border being invaded?
Many of those countries send its own tanks, missile systems to Ukraine.
Well, we're sending missile systems, and now we're sending tanks to Ukraine as well. Every nation is making these decisions as best they can to support Ukraine, but they also still have sovereign responsibilities to their citizens to defend their countries. And so they're all making that calculus, as are we. I can tell you that from our perspective,
I think their feed just got even more out of sync.
That we have the capability, the energy, the talent, the manpower, the resources to meet our Article 5 commitments to our NATO allies.
Are there any signs of a nuclear threat?
Thank you, Corinne and John. Got two questions about China. First, Corinne told us yesterday that the U.S. has been communicating with China about the implications of helping Russia. Can you tell us what China's response was to the U.S. communication, and if China continues to provide economic support, and including by selling non-lethal military aid to Russia, would the U.S. impose stronger measures than just communicate?
I won't get ahead of decisions that haven't been made, and I'm certainly not going to detail diplomatic conversations. We've been very clear publicly, and we certainly have been clear
what about China's production of fentanyl?
Settings with Chinese leaders that we don't believe that now is the time for business as usual with Russia, and that we want to see every nation sign up to the strict sanctions regime and abide by those sanctions, meet those sanctions, and do nothing to support Russia. Now, every country makes their decisions for themselves, just like I said before. And China's going to have choices that they're going to have to continue to make here about what side they want to be on. We know they're still buying Russian oil, for instance, and it's not clear, whether they will abide by the cap. But this is the time for the international community, and you're seeing so much of it today in this decision, to really continue to rally around Ukraine and to make the right decisions.
Follow up on China, sorry. So China's been saying that there's 70K COVID deaths in just over a month, up from just a dozens reported earlier this month. Does the U.S. believe that new number by the Chinese government, saying that there's been 70K?
The Chinese, we have continued to encourage the Chinese to be cooperative with international reviews and studies about COVID, and they have not been fully transparent, and we cannot speak to the veracity of those numbers. We urge China to be fully transparent about what's going on.
Sorry,
I think, ma'am, I gotta move on.
I appreciate it. We all have questions. If back to the timeline, if I may, you saying repeatedly today that it's going to take many months for all these tanks to be delivered. Taking a step back, should Americans see that as a sign of a harsh reality that this war is nowhere near from over?
I think we need to prepare ourselves that to continue to have to continue to support Ukraine for quite some time. I can't be perfectly predictive on that, and I obviously, and you heard the president say this today, we'd like to see this war end today, and it absolutely could. All Putin has to do is pull his troops out of Ukraine, call it a day, and it's over. But he has shown no signs of being willing to do that. And so we got to make sure that Ukraine can succeed on the battlefield so that they can succeed at the negotiating table. And it's difficult to be able to predict how long this is going to go on. But we have to be prepared. And this is I think, to get to your question, well, I can't tell the American people exactly how long it's going to take. We have to be prepared to stay at this task of supporting Ukraine, as the president said, for as long as it takes.
I think it's crazy that they act like they care about that stuff so much. But we're the ones that pay their bills, and we're the ones to pay everyone else that they're paying. So why don't they care about our border? Why don't they care about us? Not even kind of half a little bit is close. That's how much they claim to care about everyone else.
What's at stake? And it's
because they don't care. It's manipulation.
In Ukrainian lives, but it's bigger than that. It's about the principle of sovereignty.
There's also been, if I could really fast, there's also been bipartisan outrage and frustration over the last few days that there are just more and more disclosures of classified documents showing up in places where they were not supposed to be.
That's a strong woman right there. It's one of those women that manhandle you, show you a good time, throw you around the bedroom a little bit.
Is that you're welcome.
Thank you.
Look at him blushing.
Obviously, President, you've heard Karine say he takes the treatment of classified materials.
Oh, I appreciate you, Mr. Mountain.
And the National Security Council staff, we deal with classified material every single day. You have to do that. We all know what the rules are. We follow the rules, and the procedures exist for a reason, and they've been developed over many, many years as the nature of classified material has changed now to now include electronic capability. And so we're working at that very, very hard. I don't have any changes to speak to. The process of classified material handling, not process, but the guidelines change over time as technology changes, and we're always reviewing those procedures to make sure that they're fully appropriate.
Is there a problem then with overclassification?
Is there a problem with
Overclassification of documents?
Well, I think, it's always a balance, and you're always trying to meet that balance about whether things are classified appropriately. And the intelligence community works at this, obviously.
He needs some chicken bacon.
I wouldn't go so far as to slap a Band-Aid on it and say, yeah, everything's overclassified, but it's a balance that we try to strike to make sure that everything is appropriately marked and appropriately handled. But, it varies from document to document and from issue to issue.
And a quick one on Germany. At any point during the conversations with Germany, did they make the Leopard deployment contingent on the U.S. sending the Abrams? And can you give us just some sense of what led to the joint decision? I mean, I'm just trying to understand. You didn't want to send the tanks, then you decided to send the tanks. What happened?
Tanks were never off the table. We have been nothing but honest and transparent about the particular challenges of the Abrams, which those challenges still exist. I mean, it is still going to require a unique supply chain and maintenance requirements and jet fuel. I mean, all that stuff is still valid. We've been very honest about that. The decision today was the result of many, many discussions with the Germans as well as our allies and partners about what Ukraine is going to need going forward and how we can all best address that.
Just a couple more. Go ahead, Michael.
Mr. Kirby, can you take a question on
Go ahead,
Africa?
Michael.
I know
Go ahead, Michael.
Jean-Pierre
Can you talk? Go ahead, Michael.
about
the training process for learning how to operate
Yeah, it's really clear when everyone's talking all over each other.
Ukrainians to get up to speed. When do you think it's expected to start? Where would it be? Would it be in Ukraine?
Who is that guy?
We're still working our way through the details of that, and I'll refer you to the Defense Department for more granularity. I can tell you a few things. One, the training will absolutely not occur in Ukraine, but they haven't landed a location for where that would take place. But it won't be inside Ukraine, clearly. And they will run an ambitious training program for them, as we have on every other system. The Patriot battery training is ongoing right now at Fort
Snowflake's nightmare. They hate Simon. Yeah, they don't like Simon speaking because, I mean, it's not quite as accurate as Ducey, but he definitely ruffles their little feathers.
And I think you can expect that the Pentagon will take that same approach on the training on the Abrams. But how long is it going to take? I really am not able to say. They're still working their way through that. We don't think that it will take too much longer. I'd say probably weeks, not months, before they're able to really nail down the details of this and start to put it in place, the training regimen.
John, how hard is it to walk out of a skiff with classified material?
Everybody who goes into a skiff knows what the requirements are to go in, and knows what the requirements are to go out. You can't bring personal devices in, and you certainly can't leave with material unless that material is appropriately secured.
And usually what happens to someone in the chain of command if they do leave with a piece of classified material that they're not supposed to have or that is not secured?
I think if you do it inadvertently, or you do it and you realize you don't have it secured in a locked bag, or you self-report, which is exactly what the president did.
Oh, it's not treason?
But you self-report, and you make
no issues at all. That's okay.
That you get the material back secured where it belongs, and that you're transparent about it.
Someone let this guy know that your intentions really don't matter a whole lot when it comes to criminal activity.
I understand that the distinction you're making between offensive weapons and defensive weapons, but the Russians are not seeing that subtlety, or perhaps intentionally, right? They're calling, I mean, one of their propagandists is calling for, the annihilation.
Is this guy trolling them, or did he really just decide to wear that outfit today?
It's indicative of the mood in
Because of this
Moscow.
announcement?
Well, because of this announcement, and then I think they're quite irked by the German announcement, given the history. So, is it possible that they see this as a provocation to escalate? And I heard one of my colleagues ask about
to take some of your
tactical
questions,
nukes.
and I will.
Could this give them a pretext to use those either on the battlefield or against the Baltics or Poland or elsewhere?
It sounded like he said some other stuff in that sense.
The president put it very plainly today that these tanks pose no offensive threat to Russia. They do, as I told Phil, pose a threat to Russian soldiers and units that are in Ukraine. They're very powerful, very capable. And not just the Abrams, but the Leopards that are going to be coming soon too. Very, very powerful. But they don't pose a threat to the Russian homeland. They are designed to help the Ukrainians in what we believe is going to be a need for combined arms operation in the coming months.
The nuke threat specifically, do you see that worsening?
I would just tell you, we don't have any indication that Mr. Putin has any intention to use weapons of mass destruction, let alone nuclear weapons, tactical or otherwise. We monitor as best we can, and we believe that our strategic deterrent posture is appropriate, but we've seen no indication that that's in the offing.
Mr. Kirby, what was the president's reaction when he
Yes,
learned
ma'am. Wherever you want to go. Wherever you want to go.
the American intelligence agency?
Why aren't you calling out Simon?
What was his reaction?
How and when it was decided to send the Abrams? I mean, was there a final, call with Chancellor Schultz or a meeting with officials that really pushed that decision across the finish line?
I think, just in general, I'd rather not get into specific interagency internal deliberations, but in general, this decision by the president was made in the last several days, this particular one. But it came, as I said earlier, on the heels of dozens of conversations at various levels of the chain of command, not just between the president and the chancellor, but chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and his counterpart, and Secretary Austin and his counterpart. They were just out in Ramstein on Friday as a part of this Ukraine Defense Contact Group, and the issue of tanks, particularly Leopard tanks, was absolutely on the agenda last Friday at Ramstein. So, I mean, it builds on weeks of discussions and conversations with the Germans, with our allies and other allies and partners, as well as, quite frankly, with the Ukrainians. All right, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Anyone but Simon.
Thanks, John. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so
She's pretty greened out. A little early. It's not March yet.
today we announced data.
You hooligans, remember my birthday's coming up.
In this year's open enrollment period, a record-breaking 16.3 million Americans signed up for affordable health care through the Affordable Care Act. That's over double the number of Americans who signed up for health insurance coverage through the marketplaces during the first open enrollment season in 2014.
Okay, let me refresh the page. Korean's buffering.
Looking for health care through the Affordable Care Act could find health care plans for $10 or less per month. That's because of the lower health insurance rates that were delivered as part of...
Clone One says she looks like Oscar the Grouch. She kind of does with those dreads and stuff.
In all, these lower rates are allowing millions of Americans to continue to save $800 per year on health insurance coverage. President Biden promised to lower costs for families and expand access to quality, affordable health care, and he is delivering on that promise. Bless you, Nancy. And finally, as you all know, tomorrow President Biden will deliver remarks on recent proof that his economic plan is working, including a record nearly 11 million jobs created, the 2 strongest years of job growth in history, 750,000 manufacturing jobs created, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years, the best 2 years for small business applications on record, annual inflation falling and wages rising over the last 6 months. The president will then contrast his plan with Republicans.
I love that when they post this stuff on Twitter, Twitter fact checks them.
The president is building an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, and protecting Social Security and Medicare. Congressional Republicans want to cut Social Security, want to cut Medicare programs Americans have earned, have paid into, and impose a 30% national sales tax that will increase taxes on working families. That is what they have said they want to do, and that is clearly their plan. His remarks will be in Springfield, Virginia, with steam fighter union workers who are benefiting from his economic plan. With that, Amr, can you kick us off?
Thank you. Does the administration think it's time for all former presidents to do a scrub of their homes and offices to make certain they don't have any classified documents in their possession?
So I think I was asked a version of that question yesterday, and it remains the same as what we're going to do from here. Is, again, be prudent, be consistent. I would refer you to the White House Counsel Office. I'm just not going to comment on any change of procedure, how things should move forward. I would refer you to the White House Counsel's Office.
On a separate matter,
that's Oscar the liar on stage.
Moving to delay on new tax credits on EVs.
So I haven't seen those reports. Clearly, when it comes to electrical vehicles, that's something that is incredibly important to this president. We saw that in the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. Remember, it is a bipartisan piece of legislation, and he is committed to really tackling climate change by making sure we're moving forward. One of the processes is making sure that we're moving with electric vehicles. I don't have anything specific to say about this particular action that the senator is making.
One last thing, any updates on when Speaker McCarthy may be coming to visit?
So as you know, the president is very much looking forward to meeting with Speaker McCarthy. We haven't locked anything in yet. They have a working relationship, as we've said before. They want to continue and build on that relationship. Don't have anything here to share. They're expected to talk on a range of issues. When we have locked in that meeting, we certainly will let you all know.
24/7, no regrets.
Another question about Senator Manchin. He had a meeting with the House Speaker, and reportedly he said after that meeting that he wants the White House.
Look at Peter looking at the other guy's laptop.
Cutting spending in exchange for raising the debt limit. Has he conveyed that?
He's like, yo, your girl's tits are whack.
And does the White House have any response to Senator Manchin about that?
I'll say a couple of things, and I've been asked this question over the last 2 days in different variations. Look, I don't have any conversations to share that was had on this campus with Senator Manchin. As you know, we talked to
Frozen.
Congressional members from both sides of the chamber very regularly. What I will say is the president has been always very clear. If folks have ideas on how to deal with the national debt and lower the debt, he's happy to hear that conversation. He's happy to hear those policies and those ideas. And as you know, you've heard me say this many times, 1.7 trillion, which is a record number that the president has been able to do to bring down the deficit. When it comes to default, we see this as a separate matter. We see this very differently, and it should be done without conditions. We've been very clear about that. And if you think about just the basic action that the Congress should be taking, we're talking about the debt that has been acquired, that has racked up by Congress. We're not talking about new spending. We're not talking about anything new. We're talking about Congress just paying their debt, which is a basic responsibility. 90% of the debt that has been racked up happened before the president walked into the office. So again, it should be done without conditions. We've been very clear about that, and we'll continue to share that with whoever wants to listen.
And then on a separate topic, there are some House Democrats who are now calling on Speaker McCarthy to limit Congressman George Santos's access to classified information based on some of his connections and some of the lies that he's told about his background. Does the White House share that view that he should be restricted from viewing classified information?
What we have said about Congressman George Santos is that this is something, as it relates to committees or any actions that members need to feel like they should be happening, that is something for Congress to decide. That is something specifically for the Republican conference to decide. They are the ones who should figure out what is owed to the American people. We're not going to comment from here. We're not going to comment on actions that they're taking on other congressional members from here. But again, we believe that is something for Republican conference. They have, as you know, the majority in the House, and they should be deciding on how to move and what is owed to the American people.
So you don't have any concerns about him viewing
This is something, again, that should be decided by congressional members. We'll leave it there.
Can you assure the American people that when President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris leave office, no classified documents will walk away with them to places they shouldn't be?
So I'm going to be very careful here. As you can imagine, what I can say is repeat what the president has said multiple times. He takes classified information. He takes classified documents very seriously. His team currently is fully cooperating with the legal procedure that is happening under the Department of Justice and also the special counsel. I'm just not going to go beyond that.
They act like that's so much effort when in reality they don't actually have a choice. Thank you so much, Snooks, for gifting 10 memberships over on YouTube. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for everything you do, Snooks. I'm going to refresh the page. I'm tired of this. Maybe it'll fix the synchronization issues.
Issue that the president takes very seriously.
Another topic. Any reaction from you from the White House?
We'll say that, when it comes to that committee, it should not be.
Nope, didn't fix the syncing issue. It's definitely on their end.
And again, those congressional members bring a lot of expertise to that committee, and I'll leave it there. Good, Nandy.
Thanks, Corinne. The White House has not confirmed the appointment of Jeff Zients as the next chief of staff. Is there a reason you're not doing that? Can you give us a sense of when you're planning to?
Why does she have NPC body language? She's
be leaving his position?
Look, I'm not going to.
It's not in any kind of rhythm of what she's talking about, just flaring her arm.
Say is that we just don't have any personal announcement to make at this time. Look, I do want to say that Jeff is currently a colleague here of mine, and I've known him for many years.
That's not true.
I've spoken to Ron and his leadership just the other day as a chief of staff, and how we were able to get to where we are with the successes with legislation, historical legislation, in part because of his expertise. And he has always been a pleasure to work with, and we're going to continue clearly to work with Ron as long as he's here. When it comes to Jeff, I've known him as well for a very long time. He's a great implementer. He's a great.
This is how they're trying to get me. This is how they're going to do it. It's all false flag. They don't know me. They're just. Come on, man.
Come on, man. Announcement to make from here, and when we do, we certainly will.
Hello there, young child.
Staying on until after the State
just
of the Union?
don't have anything. I don't have anything to share. Any personnel announcements to share at this time.
Thanks, Karina. I was wondering, is the White House concerned or keeping an eye on what's happening in Memphis right now in terms of there's a federal civil rights investigation into the death of a man who had a confrontation after a traffic stop. I know his family and lawyers have seen the body cam footage. There's an expectation that would be released publicly in the coming days. Are you guys watching that? Or?
Can you mumble a little louder?
Again, want to be very careful here. That is an ongoing investigation, so don't want to comment on an independent investigation. I'll say this, our hearts go out to his family, and I'll just leave it there without stepping over the line here and commenting on something that's ongoing.
And just one other, there was an announcement today that the President and Vice President will be doing a joint event together in Philadelphia. They aren't often outside of Washington together. Any context you can provide in terms of the planning for that and what you guys are intending?
No, Donovan. I have not been compromised. They're
going to be next Friday.
They're pulling a psyop right here. They better chill out. The hooligans will investigate and then call them out.
Discuss the progress we have made in their work implementation, the Biden-Harris economic agenda that continues to deliver results for the American people, and we will have more additional information as we get closer to that date. Okay, Mike. Yeah, I'll go to that.
The House Judiciary Committee is planning its first hearing next week on what it's calling the Biden border crisis. Wanted to see if you have a reaction to that, and also, can you talk a little bit about how the White House?
Look at the woman in the back. She was like staring right at the camera.
So look, this is something my colleagues at the White House Council has been dealing with and responding to the committee. And I mean, look, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. During the midterms, we've heard from congressional members, Republicans in particular, that their focus was going to be on lowering costs for the American people, dealing with inflation, which is something the president has been doing for the last 2 years. And on brand, they decided to do the opposite of that, to not deal with inflation.
It's kind of funny to watch her speak out of sync because it just looks like she's gulping air.
Really, truly work for the American people.
Is she signaling?
My colleagues have said this before. I'll repeat what they have said. We are willing to work with the committee in a good faith fashion. But again, it has to be in a good faith fashion, and certainly talk about.
She has nothing to say today. What's up, betrayed by corrupt scumbags? Happy freedom.
That is appropriate, but again, in a good faith fashion. And so I'm not going to get ahead of what my White House Council colleagues have said. But again, this is, they are doing the complete opposite of what they said that they would.
White House, you're trash. You need to upgrade your internet. What happened to that worldwide internet? Maybe you guys should go park at McDonald's and run this live. Whatever you got going on ain't worth nothing. Over here acting like they're going to provide the world with internet. Your guys' internet sucks.
Do during the midterms, and we have to remember the American people spoke very, very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to see. They wanted.
Tell us what we said and wanted to see. Let us know.
Deal with the issues that truly matter to them.
You've announced some of these day trips that the president's going to be doing over the next week and a half. Obviously, in less than 2 weeks, the president will be doing the State of the Union. Has he started preparations for that speech, and is there anything you could tell us about that?
Your outfit looks dumb, Karine. You should straighten yourself out. You don't look put together.
I can say this is the State of the Union. This is something that the president takes very seriously, and he knows this is an opportunity not just to talk to the congressional members that will be in front of him, but also the American people, and talk about the successes of the last 2 years and how he sees his vision in the next year, especially as we go further into 2023. So he sees this as an important opportunity to talk about how we're lowering costs for the American people. What else are we going to do?
Sam says her check engine light is on right now.
An economy that's built from the bottom up and the middle out. What else?
Top of rump.
In a bipartisan way. Don't want to get too far into what he's going to say. Clearly, we'll have more to share, but this is an important. He sees this as an important moment, not just for him, but for the American people to hear directly from the President of the United States. I'm just going to go ahead and have him.
You said the president would have his physical finished by the end of this month. Is that still on track?
That's still on track. When we have a date to share, we certainly will.
Okay, just one other quick one. The House Oversight Committee is looking into Hunter Biden's art sales, or the sales of his own art.
One dude looks kind of like Lil Boozy in the background. Come on with the buffering. You guys are ridiculous. Where else can we watch this? Because YouTube is just a terrible sight to see. I'm gonna have to pull it up from Facebook or something.
About that, does it have any response to it?
I will refer you to Hunter Biden's representatives on this. Go ahead, and right behind. Yeah.
There are concerns that the big tech layoffs and the banking layoffs will spill over into the broader economy. When the president speaks about the economy tomorrow, how will he address those fears and the fears of a recession?
And look, we understand, the fears. But what I will say is that, and I've spoken to this a couple of times.
I got it pulled up on Facebook. Next time it buffers, I'm just going to flip it out.
Opening data that we have seen where layoffs remains record low. And so that is important to look at those numbers as well. I've talked about the consumer price index. I've talked about the PPI numbers that we have seen. But he's also going to call out.
It's even buffering on Facebook. It's just not buffering the platform. My goodness. Like, I don't even know what to say. You know, prior to the internet, when the president addressed the nation or the White House addressed the nation, there was no buffering happening. They just declared the message, and that was that. But, you know, the internet's so great.
cut Medicaid.
All this new technology is so great. Just wait till we cover these articles I have lined up for us. Some exciting new technology just came out.
The right to be part of those programs. So yes, he is going to call that out when he sees there is real danger against those programs. Okay,
thank you. Two quick questions. Just when the meeting with Speaker McCarthy happened.
Gone fishing, I'd eat that M&M. You crack me up.
The White House or
what's up, Harry Potter?
The president's scheduled to go to Camp David this weekend. There's not going to be a possibility that the speaker is going to appear to meet with the president some other off-campus.
So let me just say this, just as a reminder to all of you. It is very common, it is tradition, right, for a speaker to meet with the president, especially.
Well, Karine, you're making this suck. Might just have to leave you in the past. Yeah, look how sad you look. That's what we look like when we gotta hear your voice. Human trash. Yeah, stare at your toes. You have no value. You should just quit and cry real hard for all of us.
In this instance, as we go into the 118th.
All right, hooligans, I think we're going to move forward. They don't know what they're doing over here.
Congress, so there's nothing unusual. And
nope, we're done. We're done. Too much screwing around. I don't like that. Okay? You're going to make me use my dad voice. I don't like having to do that. Stupid White House stuff. Thank you so much, Red, for gifting 10 memberships over on YouTube. I appreciate you, Red. Thank you. All right, hooligans, we're going to move forward. White House is just trying to move us backward anyways. Goodness. Well, guess now I can tell you guys what we're going to cover today, because I didn't do that at the beginning. Well, that was a press briefing that was supposed to happen at 1:30. High quality stuff. About hour and a half, 2 hours ago, Old Man Walter was speaking about his continued support for the blue and yellow country that I can't talk about. And then we're going to cover a video on the former FBI official that was arrested over ties to Russian oligarch. And then we're going to be covering strikes that grounded flights in Berlin. And then we'll be wrapping up today with an article on how AI has found words to work against disease. We'll say that. So we're going to move forward here. Alright, so this is Old Man Walter talking about his continued support for blue and yellow country. This video is just under 10 minutes long. This is going to really shine light on half the nonsense that they were asking during that press briefing while we were able to hear it. So let's just get her started, hooligans.
Good almost morning. Afternoon. Thank you for being here. Yesterday marked 11 months since Russia's brutal full-scale.
Suzette, in order to claim a gifted membership, you click the gift box at the top of the chat to claim it. And make sure you guys are thanking Red. Those memberships are not free. Thank you, Red.
And through every single step of this horrific war, the American people have been strong and unwavering in their support. And Democrats and Republicans in Congress have stood together. The United States has worked in lockstep with our allies and partners around the world to make sure the Ukrainian people are in the strongest possible position to defend their nation, their families, and against the truly brutal aggression of Russia. We haven't seen the likes of this in a long time. The United States and Europe are fully united. This morning, I had a long conversation with our NATO allies, German Chancellor Scholz, French President Macron, Prime Minister Sunak, and the Italian Prime Minister Meloni, to continue our close coordination and our full support of Ukraine. Because you all know, I've been saying this for a long time, the expectation on the part of Russia is we're going to break up. We're not going to stay united. But we are fully, thoroughly, totally united. With spring approaching, Ukrainian forces are working to defend the territory they hold and preparing for additional counteroffensives. To liberate their land, they need to be able to counter Russia's evolving tactics and strategy on the battlefield in the very near term. They need to improve their ability to maneuver in open terrain, and they need an enduring capability to deter and defend against Russian aggression over the long term. The Secretary of
Matthew, weak, feeble, senile ghoul. Yeah, you're not wrong. Oh my goodness. YouTube, you're killing me today. Ugh. I need to refresh the page. They want me to watch a commercial. Oh, they edited the video since I pulled it up. Yo, they're giving me the hardest day ever. The hardest day ever. My watch is telling me my heart rate is at 131 beats per minute while I'm sitting here trying not to kick the bucket while I got a fever and green stuff draining down my dang throat. Now the White House doesn't know how to do their job. The video won't even play now. It's just broken. Well, is that...
The United States has worked in lockstep with our allies and partners around the world to make sure the Ukrainian people are in the strongest possible position to defend their nation, their families, and against the truly brutal aggression of Russia. I haven't seen the likes of this in a long time. The United States and Europe are fully...
I can only swear when I don't hit the button.
This morning, I had a long conversation with our NATO allies, German Chancellor Scholz, French President Macron, Prime Minister Sunak, and the Italian Prime Minister Meloni, to continue our close coordination and our full support of Ukraine. Because you all know, I've been saying this for a long time, the expectation on the part of Russia is we're going to break up. We're not going to stay united, but we are fully, thoroughly, totally united. With spring approaching, Ukrainian forces are working to defend the territory they hold and preparing for additional counteroffensives. To liberate their land, they need to be able to counter Russia's evolving tactics and strategy on the battlefield in the very near term. They need to improve their ability to maneuver in open terrain, and they need an enduring capability to deter...
That lip smacking kills me.
...over the long term. The Secretary of State and the Secretary of the military behind me they've been deeply, deeply involved in this whole effort. Armored capability, as General Austin will tell you, has been critical, and that's why the United States has committed hundreds of armored fighting vehicles to date, including more than 500 as part.
Okay, I don't know what to do anymore.
Part of the assistance package we announced last Friday. And today I'm announcing that the United States will be sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine, the equivalent of 1 Ukrainian battalion. Secretary Austin has recommended this step because it will enhance the Ukraine's capacity to defend.
We're going to move forward to this video about the flights being grounded, and if it buffers, we're just going to move to the article. YouTube is trying to force me to watch ads, but then the ads aren't popping up, so it's just sitting there buffering over and over again because YouTube is messed up. Their new app-like platform is trash when it comes to viewing. I have 7 YouTube pages open, and I think that is causing the issue because they're trying to show me ads on all these platforms while the videos are not playing the ads. So it's just buffering because their system sucks and they need people to work on it. So we're gonna try and watch this video. If it doesn't work, we're going straight to the article, and then I'm going to sleep because I can't handle much more of this. I'm sitting here dying.
All flights were cancelled at a major airport in Germany on Wednesday due to a strike. Staff at Berlin's BER airport went on strike for the day to push for better pay. 300 takeoffs and landings for 35,000 passengers were originally planned for the day. Martin Ellinghaus works for the airport's fire department.
Wir sind hier, weil wir 500 Euro mehr Lohn fordern.
We are here because we want €500 more, respectively a fixed amount. Our last wage increases were back in 2019, and now we have been offered 5% in 2 years' time, and we don't find that acceptable as workers.
Goodness, this is awesome. This is awesome. Love this. Having a great time.
A leading union wanted airport staff in ground services, aviation security and the airport company to strike. It called the one-day action due to what it saw as insufficient progress in talks over wages. One traveller found they were unable to get back home.
And all the flights cancelled, so disappointed. Wasted a lot of money to get here and try to experience Germany. Well, not so good. Feeling bad.
A union representative told Reuters the airport company had made a collective bargaining offer. The proposal was for a 24-month...
Thank you so much, Sam, for gifting 5 memberships on YouTube. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Sam.
Salaries would rise by 3% on June 1st and by another 2% in May next year.
Google Fi, a phone plan.
There's that ad they've been trying to squeeze in this whole time.
A 24-month term where salaries would rise by 3% on June 1st and by another 2% in May next year.
Well, at least we got through one video. Well, we can see if now that I watched an ad, they will allow me to watch this other video. So this video is about former FBI official arrested over ties to Russian oligarch. Let's get her started, hooligans.
Over his ties to a Russian oligarch. Charles McGonigal is one of the highest-ranking FBI officials to ever be charged with the crime. Aaron Katursky has the details. Good morning, Aaron.
George, good morning. In fact, when Charles McGonigal worked here at the FBI's New York field office, he was the top
lip reading with JeffMAC. That's right.
In charge of hunting spies. So federal prosecutors said he should have known better than to.
I actually just watched an ad. Why am I not allowed to watch videos? You guys suck. Hard. Till your throat is chafed. Till you have calluses inside your esophagus, because you just can't stop sucking. You just go and go and go and go, and then they've already said stop. They gave you the little tap on the head, but you just keep going and going and going.
Take money from a sanctioned Russian oligarch closely tied to Vladimir Putin. McGonigal is facing charges. He took concealed payments from Oleg Deripaska, an aluminum magnate sanctioned by the United States for enabling Putin's actions in Ukraine. He's also mentioned in the Mueller report because of an association with former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort. The indictment said McGonigal was paid to investigate a rival Russian billionaire and to get Deripaska off the sanctions list. McGonigal pleaded not guilty, but he's facing additional charges in Washington, D.C. that accuse him of taking $250,000 from another foreign intelligence agent while McGonigal was still working for the FBI. And George, in exchange for that payment, federal prosecutors say he opened a criminal investigation.
Professor McGonigal, like on Harry Potter.
There's some charges. Okay, Aaron. Thanks. Hi, everyone.
Well, we pretty much made it through the video. Thank God. Now we can move to the part where I actually read the article, and we don't have to worry about buffering infringement from other areas and sources. So I'm going to be posting a link in the chat. Should take you to this article here. This is going to be some interesting stuff. This is actually like a really long article. I'm probably going to have to do some lingo gymnastics to get through this without any issues. But I think it's really interesting, and it almost feels like humans playing God. Copia says, I hope YouTube can read my lips. I hope they can read my lips. I hope they love it. Happy Freedom High Plains Drifter. Alright, hooligans. So the link that I just shared in the chat should take you to this article. This article is about how AI found the words to take out disease. The article says that a predictive model has been developed that enables researchers to encode instructions for cells to execute. Scientists at the University of California, San Francisco, the UCSF, and IBM Research have created a virtual library of thousands of what they call command sentences for cells using machine learning. These so-called sentences are based on combinations of what they would, what they're saying is words. It's not literally words, but so it's like in quotes words that direct engineered immune cells to find and continuously eliminate disease cells. The article mentions that scientists of University of California, oh my gosh, they write the whole thing out, the UCSF, says the new advance allows scientists to predict which elements, natural or synthesized, they should include in the cell to give it the precise behaviors required to respond effectively to complex diseases. The article states that Wendell Lim, PhD, the Breyer's Distinguished Professor of Cellular and Molecular Pharmacology, who directs the UCSF Cell Design Institute and led the study. They mentioned, we'll go with that route, they mentioned, only by having the power of prediction can we get to a place where we can rapidly design new cellular therapies that carry out the desired activities. The article goes on to say, much of therapeutic cell engineering involves choosing and creating receptors that, when added to the cell, will enable it to carry out a new function. Receptors are molecules that bridge the cell membrane to sense the outside environment and provide the cell with instructions on how to respond to the environment and the environmental conditions. Lim and lead author Kyle Daniels, PhD, a researcher in Lim's lab, referred to his motives. Refer to it as motifs. Each motif, I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, acts as a command, as they describe a word, directing an action inside the cell. How these words are strung together into what they would consider sentences determines what commands the cell will execute. Pairing machine learning with cellular engineering creates a synergetic new research paradigm, the article says. So although they're trying to portray this as if this is some great breakthrough in technology, it just really sounds like they're trying to play God. That's what it sounds like to me. I don't think that reprogramming your cells is a good thing. Like, you think God made your cells wrong? Or whoever made you, or whatever you believe, you think you weren't okay until they came in and re-engineered your development as an existing thing in the world, I don't know. That doesn't sound good. And anything man touches is trash. It seems like everything we touch is never 100. It might be like kind of good, but then there's all this bad. Like, think about all the medicine in the world. You don't feel good, you take medicine. How long is the page of possible reactions on everything? Even like vitamins have like reactions and stuff, because man is not perfect. And so when we go and mess with stuff like this, think about the possibilities of how messed up you could be. Like, you don't even know what could happen. You grow a third arm that beats you up all day. You could lose your vision. You could lose your ability to walk. Who knows? Who knows what could happen? That is some wild stuff I felt. I believe I randomly came across this article. I don't think anyone sent it to me, but when I seen it, it was like, yo, we need to talk about this, because this AI is everywhere. It is everywhere, and I've been talking about it for the last year, but now we're starting to see the fruits of their labor all over the place. All over the place. From that parallel reality that we talked about yesterday to this kind of stuff. This AI is going to be everywhere, and like I've been saying, community guidelines and mandates and restrictions, that's how they're going to control us. If it's not a law, you need to stop participating in it, because we're telling them that we will obey to mandates and community guidelines. So they're going to keep making our world, our whole world, digital, so they can control us without even having to pass new laws. You don't have to take a vote in order to make a community guideline. So once they got you, they got you. Once you're a part of the system, they could just wake up one day and change all the rules. Just like on Rumble, everybody loves Rumble, but if you look in the community guidelines, their community guidelines are almost exactly like YouTube's. They're just not cracking down on anyone yet. They could wake up tomorrow and just ban half the channels. I think that they're just trying to build up a big enough audience before they do start cracking down on people. And I've been saying that for like a year. But we'll see how it goes, because this is all a power grab, and it seems like that's all the world is anymore, is people just struggling to control other people. And it's toxic, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting. I'm a big person on, if you leave me alone and let me be happy, I'll appreciate you. It's like, I want that for everyone. I want everybody to be whole. I want everyone to be okay. I don't want bad things to happen to people, but I want people to leave me alone. You leave me alone and let me be happy, and you'll be okay yourself. And I wish that people just carried that, you know, like, treat others the way you want to be treated. It sounds ridiculous, but I think if people thought about that a little bit more nowadays, they'd probably chill out the way that they talk to people. I feel like that stuff is wild, and this is just people in this field portraying the same behavior. They're trying to control everything. Everything is, look at me, I'm the best, and I'm better than you, and let me show you how I'm better than you, and let me just talk down about you, and all this stuff. Toxic. We just live in a toxic environment. So I don't know, I thought we would discuss this. We got to keep our eyes on what's happening around us. Well, hooligans, I'm sorry that today kind of sucked. I did not have intentions for it to go that way. I was not feeling great earlier, so I don't know. I thought I was gonna sit here and do the best I could, and then YouTube failed me. My apologies, hooligans. I tried. I don't know what else I could do to fix this, but it is what it is. I'm gonna give you guys my spiel, and then we're gonna do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're gonna wrap this up. I don't think there's anything else going on today. If there is, we'll go live, because I'm just not really thrilled with how this live went. But we'll see how it goes. I'm probably going to go to sleep right after I cut this off, because I just feel like death. I don't remember starting the live. I'm like not even here right now. I feel like I'm underwater. Either way, going on and on. Here's my spiel. Please go to jeffmaclive.com. On the homepage, you can find all the links listed. You can find the link to join Gilded for free. Gilded is currently the best way to receive notifications for when and where we go live. Every time we go live, you'll also receive notifications for important updates. There's a news board on Gilded to keep you up to date with everything going on. There's also a ton of hooligans to hang out with every day, all day, to chat about whatever you like. Also on the JeffMAC Live homepage, you can find the merch store, or the link to the merch store if you would like to grab merch. We have shirts, hoodies, and stickers. Everything is displayed in black and white, but if you find something you like, just click on it to see all the colors that item comes in. You can also find links to PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Stripe, Zelle, and Buy Me a Coffee if you would like to support what I do. Those links are also in the description, I believe. There's also links to the Amazon wish list if you would like to send me stuff. It's very easy to use. Anything you purchase directly from the wish list will be sent straight to me without you having to come find information or anything like that. It's really simple. And then finally, all the links for the membership program are listed on jeffmaclive.com's homepage. There is memberships for YouTube, Gilded, Discord, Odyssey, Rumble, and Twitch. So that's my spiel, hooligans. Let's get ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. Zachariah, I don't buy beats, I make beats. All right, hooligans, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jason, start taking garlic supplements. I could do that. I already take like 11 vitamins every day. I don't know. People are telling me that I should like chill out on that because my body might stop producing that stuff. But I take B, C, D, magnesium, zinc, elderberry. I don't know. There's some other stuff. Either way, I appreciate you, hooligans. I tried. I'm sorry that it wasn't the greatest, but I tried it. Hopefully you had some laughs. Hopefully you felt it was worth watching. We'll see what happens later today. We'll see how it goes. Otherwise, I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow for another Coffee with Hooligans. Hopefully it goes better. We'll make sure it goes better. But yes, I will see you guys tomorrow, 1 p.m., Coffee with Hooligans. I appreciate all of you. Big shout out to everyone that made donations during the membership program or purchased any merch. I appreciate all of you, and I would not be able to do this without you. So thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll see you on the next live. Until then, stand tall, shine bright, and that's a wrap.